Right, welcome back, and today we are talking about meat hygiene safety, and we have Dr. Joyce Thayer. Let's continue.
Thank you. Yeah, let's continue.
All right, thank you for that. And now, in terms of awareness, the roller on the meat at the butchery, do you think there is enough awareness for Kenyans or people at home to really know that this meat, the stamp on that meat, shows that this is coming from this slaughterhouse or this is coming from this slaughterhouse? Is there really awareness on this? Because you can imagine someone is just going to buy meat. You see it there, but you don't usually ask. So do we have awareness of this really?
What we are doing now is exactly that. Okay, there may not be much awareness by everybody.
Yes.
Some people who are curious will ask, what is this dark coloration? And then maybe the butchery person may explain. But maybe people don't, and that is why we are doing this, so that people will understand. When you go to a butchery, if you see meat that does not have that roller mark, then that tells you, that gives you a red flag. This meat is illegally slaughtered, and you should obviously not buy, and maybe you should report to the authorities that you have found meat in a certain place that is not stamped. You have a right to information. You have a right to even ask, do you have a certificate of transport where this meat, so that, and the butcherman should have, because that meat came from us. If it came from a slaughterhouse, it obviously had that. So everybody should be aware that those are traceability mechanisms for you to be able to trace the meat, and also assurance mechanisms that when you see that stamp, when you see that certificate of transport, even when you see, if you know a trader, you see that certificate of animal transport permit, then you know that that meat is inspected. Also, something else maybe I didn't say. When the meat is coming from the slaughterhouse to the butchery or wherever, it is carried in meat transport containers. And I know you have seen them. They are usually white with a red band, written meat in red. And that is in the law, that it should be that, a red container with a red band and the word meat in red above the red band. And these containers are inspected every year. They are licensed every year. So the quality of it, because somebody can get a container which will either contaminate the meat. And then before that meat leaves that slaughterhouse, the inspector should check it is clean. Then that is when they issue that certificate of transport. So those are control measures that are put in place by government to at least ensure that people are doing what they're supposed to do.
All right, and now from the butchery, someone goes, buys the meat, and now to the house. And now when you reach the house, people usually wash the meat and then they cook it. Some just cook it like that. What are the hygiene measures when it comes to meat that you've bought and of course you want to just put it on the table in the next maybe 1 hour? So what are the hygiene measures that people need to follow?
One, where did you buy your meat? How clean was that butchery? How clean is the attendant who is selling to you the meat? Because that is where maybe for you as a consumer it would start, because you don't know the processes before the butchery. So when you buy your meat, how is it wrapped? Is it wrapped in a newspaper or a dirty packaging? Because again, if you buy it and then you are going to the market and you are going to some other place and to some other place, and we say that meat is a very good food for bacteria. So you are allowing bacteria to grow more and more. Then when you get at home, how do you handle? This is just the normal personal hygiene that we should carry out. Clean your hands, clean the equipment you are using. Two, if you are cutting your meat, if you have a fridge, it is of course good policy to refrigerate it immediately if you are not cooking it immediately. If you don't have, it's good policy to cook immediately. Of course, keep your food covered. at all times as much as possible to prevent the flies and the dust and that getting into your meat. Okay, let's say the cutting board that you are using or the knife you are using, maybe you have a tendency you have one cutting board. So you cut the meat, then you cut the onion, and maybe you cut the kachubari on the same, and you didn't clean. So clean. Use clean water, use clean equipment, clean your hands, cook food immediately, eat food as much as possible hot. If you have to keep the food, let it cool fast and maybe refrigerate it if you have a refrigerator. If not, keep it covered and eat. Again, you don't keep food for 3 days. It will spoil. And you will allow maybe bacteria to grow. So eat fast. If you are reheating food, as much as possible, heat it hot. Because if you heat it not very hot, you are likely to encourage bacteria to grow. The ones that were maybe just dormant there, you bring to the temperature. Bacteria grew at a certain temperature, not very cold, not very hot. So if you leave it in the, I would call the bacteria-friendly temperatures, that is maybe from around 10, I cannot 10 to about 50 degrees or thereabouts. I'm not very sure of the figures, but it is around there. Then that is a temperature where bacteria will grow very, very fast. So it's either you keep your food in the fridge or you heat it. And that is why you find sometimes people will go to a wedding or to a bash and then they start diarrheaing because the food stayed in that temperature friendly for bacteria for long.
All right, and also now, for example, you have a fridge. You've put your meat there and it stays for more than 2 days in the fridge or for more than 3 days in the fridge. Of course, you've explained not too cold, not too hot. That is where bacteria thrive. So is there a problem when it stays maybe for more than 3 days in the fridge and then maybe you take it out and then you try to melt the ice and then you cook it? Is it advisable to do that? Okay, can you say for even a week?
Again, you know, the fridge, you have the chilling temperature, you have the freezing temperature. If you are freezing the meat, it can keep for long.
Yes.
If you are chilling the meat, that is the normal maybe 0 to 4 degrees. That is usually the temperature of the normal chilling compartment. You can keep for those 2 or 3 days, it is still okay. But when you get it out, how long again do you keep it? Because now it will come to the room temperature, which is the fridge temperature. There are very few bacteria. There are still some bacteria that may grow in the fridge, but they are very few. And many of them are not disease causing. I said many of them. There are some that may, but they are spoilage bacteria. You know, meat can spoil, and it doesn't have a disease-causing organism. But there are some organisms, so it is good to be you don't take a chance because you don't know what bacteria is in the food. So if you get it from the fridge, you heat, unless maybe you are eating a cold meat, because you can eat, like when you are doing your sandwich or something. Then you eat immediately. You don't leave it at room temperature for long. But always wash your hands, wash the equipment, cover your food.
All right, and now there's this other type of consuming of the meat where we see an animal is slaughtered and then the meat is roasted. And the way it's roasted, there are some communities in Kenya, the way that meat is roasted is not really, you can clearly tell there's certain elements of blood there. So is it advisable to do such kind of roasting of the meat?
The issue of cooking either rare or medium done or done, as you say, there are some products that is the way they are eaten. But one of the things, again, you go back to how was the production of that meat? Because we know raw meat is likely to contain bacteria.
Yes.
And these bacteria may be disease-causing bacteria. So it's good to be cautious about that. So even when you are doing your medium rare or rare, you have to take that into consideration, that there may be bacteria in the meat that is done rare. So if the meat, and if you are maybe sure, which maybe you're not the one who slaughtered the animal, so you may not be sure that the meat is not contaminated. So when you cook it rare, there is a risk. There is a risk that it may be. But if the meat you're sure it is clean, it doesn't have. There are communities that actually eat not even rare, even raw.
Yes, even raw.
Even raw. So, and again, it is not all meat that is having bacteria. It's not all meat that is having a disease-causing bacteria. But it's good to be very cautious. It's very good to be cautious, because those are the areas where people will get sick because of that. Of course, there are other processes that you cook meat to maybe remove that. Like maybe there are people who ferment meat, the other products which are done, maybe you salt meat. Those are methods of, again, reducing the risks, but the risk may still be there if the meat is not. But the good thing is the majority of Kenyans eat very cooked meat. So the risk of maybe bacteria other than contamination may be reduced, but other issues we talked about, are there chemicals in the meat because of the handling at the farm and on the way? So those are other issues which may not be reduced by the cooking. So taking care at each step of the chain is very important to ensure that the meat you eat is safe.
Right, thank you for that. Also, you've spoken about contaminated meat. And when we look at contaminated meat, what are some of the signs that show you that this meat is not really good for consumption, it's contaminated?
Okay, there are two things that would say maybe the meat is not good from you looking at it. One, it may not even, you may not see contamination because you may not see the bacteria. But if you see meat that is spoiling, it is darkened, it is slimy, it is greening, that will tell you that this meat is not safe. Two, of course, if you see clearly dirty meat, it has hairs, it has dust, it has other particles, that again will tell you. But from looking at it, for most of the times you may not tell, because you cannot see bacteria with your eyes, so you cannot tell whether it's contaminated or not. So the good thing is make sure that all the hygiene processes are followed, all the regulatory processes are followed, as much as you can be able to ascertain. Then you can be sure that you have reduced the risk to a large extent. Where you are buying the meat, you know that butchery, there are some butcheries you go and then, but somehow we still buy. And then you find we don't take much consideration to that. You have had a running stomach for 2 days. We don't even talk about it. But you bought medication, you missed a day in office, you missed an appointment you had or something. Those are costs that you don't put into consideration relating to food safety, but they are costs. The man-hours lost because 3 people in your house were having a running stomach and they didn't do what they're supposed to do, and you had to hire help to come and do the work that is supposed to. Those are costs that maybe you don't put into consideration, but they are costs of food, hygiene, and safety.
All right, and also this meat, the one that is spoiled or contaminated, do we see some signs maybe after you've cooked, or what usually happens? Because of course you can't see it with your own eyes, but are there signs when you're still cooking or when you've already cooked, before even you eat, that show you that this one is contaminated?
Sure, there are one, and maybe I didn't mention, spoiling meat will have a bad smell. So that is one. You may not see what is happening, but you can see you can smell the bad smell, you can see the slime or the greening, and when you cook it also, we know the normal color of meat, surely that reddish, dark reddish. If it is having a different color, most probably it will be very dark color, or maybe some greening kind of color. So that will definitely tell you it's not. You may also get meat when you are cutting, it is slimy, or maybe it is too soft, it is breaking down. So this will tell you this is not, this meat has an issue, has a problem. Yeah, so those are some of the things that you can be able to see. Of course, we say that there are contamination that you'll be able to see. If the meat fell on the ground and there is soil on it, or there is dung, because maybe when it was slaughtered, somebody splashed the intestinal content on it, so those ones you'll see. But for most of the times you may not see, because if I come and touch the meat, and I had come from the washroom, you will not see. But it is contaminated.
Yes.
Yeah, so those smells, it may smell, maybe the animal had just been treated yesterday with some kind of veterinary drug. And you can smell the smell of that drug. So you can say, this meat has an issue. Yeah, so those are some of the things you can be able to see, you can be able to tell. Of course, at maybe the processing plant where they have the facilities, they do some laboratory tests. But you and me at the consumer level or the butchery out there, we may not be able to do that. So for most of the times we do the organoleptic, that is the sight, the smell, the taste. Those are the ways that we'll be able to tell that there's a problem.
And also, now, in your expertise, the years that you've been handling this and being also under the veterinary directorate services, what are some of the challenges that you've been able to encounter when it comes to handling meat in various capacities, or also in different areas of the country? What are some of the challenges that you've been able to handle?
Okay. The one, and maybe basic, which we may not be able to quantify, is what you asked at one point, the understanding of the people, the citizenry, on food safety issues and the control measures put. That's a challenge. And that is why we really would want such kind of show and this for people to understand that. Number two, we don't have what we would call very good facilities all over the country. There are some areas that they are not maybe very good, the standard, the design, because most of the facilities are privately owned. They are high investment, so maybe they may not be able to actually meet the standards. Two, or maybe three, they are like water is an issue in many places. And right now, when we are experiencing the drought, it may also be a bigger issue. The issue of, we talked about cold chain and cold storage. Not all the areas have electricity, so the issue of refrigeration may be a challenge. Then, of course, there are some places where, when you are transporting the meat from the market, from the slaughterhouse to the market, the roads may be bad. So there may be dust, in as much as the construction of the facility should warrant that you have dust seals. But sometimes it may happen because the road is so rough, maybe the dust seal is not working well, or people, because of understanding, are not using the correct quality of containers for carrying the meat. The people may, because of not understanding, when you use a knife, that has, let's say, a wooden blade. Even if you clean, it's wet, so it doesn't dry, so bacteria may grow. So the challenge of, one, the people understanding, or the people along the chain, whether it's the farmers, how do you do good agricultural practices, good hygienic practices? If it is at the manufacturing, how do you do good manufacturing practices? Do all the workers understand the good hygienic practices? Does everybody understand? So the challenge of understanding and knowledge is there. The challenge of infrastructure, whether it is the slaughter infrastructure, the market infrastructure, the road infrastructure, electricity, water, these are challenges. The challenges of maybe in some counties, I believe right now during devolution, may not have enough workers. So maybe they are not able to educate the farmers well. that inspector may be old and tired, so may not be able to do the work that they're supposed to do. So these are challenges that are there and they are real, that may work against that food safety. But on the whole, if you understand and we all do what we are supposed to do, I believe we can be able to take care of ourselves as the consumers, and the food business operators at each level will be able to do what they are supposed to do.
Also, and now, even as we are about now to close, when you look at the animal itself, what do farmers need to look out for to show them that this animal is not good for consumption? And also not even farmers alone, even you might say someone who owns an animal, maybe a goat, you've been presented to, you've been given as a gift. This is your goat, take care of it. This is a calf, take care of it. So what shows that this animal is not good for consumption, and what shows that this animal is actually good for consumption?
One of the things maybe even not to show, the first thing is how are you taking care of that animal? Because that will contribute to that whether it is good or not.
Yes.
If the animal is not fed well, is not fed with a good kind of food, it may not, because here when you're talking of good quality, there are two things. Safety, which we have talked about in details, then the quality. You don't want an animal meat that is so hard. So are you feeding the animal well? Are you keeping the animal for 10 years and then slaughter? Definitely that animal will be hard.
Yes.
So we are talking of the quality and the safety also. Are you handling it like the way you are treating it of diseases, the way you are handling it such that it is not injured? Then number two, of course, if the animal is physically sick, that's a challenge. It is not good for meat. If the animal is very stressed, this is something that may sound, I don't know, funny, but meat from a happy animal keeps longer than meat from a sad animal. So if you slaughter an animal when it is happy, the meat will keep longer, the meat will be. Reason is, when you are stressed, or let's say when the animal is stressed and you slaughter it, the heart does not pump out all the blood well. And we said blood is good for bacteria. So the meat will remain with a lot of blood inside, and that may cause the meat to spoil faster. Number two, maybe the animal is injured. Where there are injuries, there's usually a lot of accumulation of blood there. Again, that may be a place where bacteria may grow. So make sure that even when you are slaughtering the animal, make sure that it is happy when you slaughter it. Make sure that it is not stressed. Like now when you chase a chicken, you know, that's what you do. Chase it. The good thing is most of the times you slaughter and you eat immediately. So it may not have that long time to keep. But if it is for sale, an animal is coming 200 kilometers to the slaughterhouse and is slaughtered immediately, that meat is likely not to keep as long as if. So what is encouraged, and the good practice should be, an animal comes, it is rested for about 12 hours so that it is slaughtered. So you bring in the evening, it rests. You don't have to feed it because it will not use that food, but you give it water, you rest it. Some animals like pigs or chicken are even cooled down. Even cattle and sheep in some sort of, they are cooled down, so you shower them. Just to cool them down, to make sure that they are calm, their temperatures are low, they have rested. Also, maybe this is sounds a bit scientific. When you run very fast or you walk very fast and an animal is stressed, you use up all the glucose inside the muscles. So when you slaughter it immediately, the glucose levels are low. So the normal processes that take place after death will not be able to take place well. So the meat may not be as good. Sometimes the meat even will change color, particularly if you're talking like pigs, to change color. It will not be good consistency, it will not be good quality. So it is important to rest the animal before you slaughter it so that you get good quality. So when you see an animal is panting, is what? that is likely not to give you good quality meat.
Thank you so much. That's our time, and you've really given us very good insights when it comes to meat handling and also the production process
I
from the
truly hope
slaughterhouse and up to the plate, really. All right, there you have it. We've been speaking to Dr. Joyce Thaya, who is very good at what she does, and she's given us very good knowledge. She's been in the agriculture ministry for 35 years. 35 is a lot of years, and she's really given us a very good insight. And now, remember, meat that you buy, make sure that you look at it, and if it has the stamp, make sure the stamp tells you about the slaughterhouse that the meat is coming from. All right, that's our time. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Let's meet next time, same place, right here on KTN Farmers TV. This is Agri Talk.